I sure hope you've got your nerd cap on because we have a lot in store for you on this episode of House of the Empire. From the galaxy far, far away to stories beyond the wall to a little place in Indiana called Hawkins, we've got a lot on tap tonight. So buckle up, folks. It's time for another very full episode of House of the Empire.
For the love of fandom and the escapism of pop culture.
To the seas of Naboo.
And the direwolves of Winterfell.
All the way to the streets of Haddonfield.
Join us as we call the banners for the House of the Empire.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of House of the Empire. That intro was probably slightly redundant because we talked about all these different places, and then the intro talked about all these different places. But it is warranted because of just how much we've got in store for this episode. There's been a lot of activity with George R. R. Martin opening up his big mouth like he always does or seems to do every month or so. A lot of stuff being revealed about the new Starfighter movie, and then there was that big event that happened on Netflix over the American Thanksgiving break, and some record-setting viewership numbers and some really really great stuff that we're gonna possibly give some spoiler-free thoughts on at some point in the episode. All that and so much more on House of the Empire. I'm Zach, and to my left/right is Randy, and you got a new aesthetic going on, man. Tell us about the extreme home makeover.
It wasn't so much the extreme side of it all. It's more like I felt like I was not utilizing the space properly, and I just moved some stuff around, got rid of a couple things, and I was like, that light that was in my face right over here, I was like, we don't need that anymore. So I moved it behind me. That way I'm not trying to cover it up every single week because it's a real pain in the ass to do anyway. So I figured go with it, see what happens. And at least it's bright enough that I don't feel like I'm in a dungeon like I usually am week in and week out.
I get that. It's a tough balance between feeling like you've got the proper lighting and also feeling like you're not in a cave or a dungeon or something. I'm probably a little bit washed out because I've got this big screen over here to my right that is like got all these different tabs open because of all the different stuff that we've got to talk about. I counted before the show and I've got like 11 tabs open. That's how much content that has been compiled since the last time we got together. And Shawn, this is exactly why we did House of the Empire in the first place, is so that we can talk about Westeros, so we can talk about Star Wars, and all of those houses and then some are going to get covered on tonight's show.
Yeah, man, it's a jam-packed show. It's kind of like if you followed the channel for a long time, this show really encapsulates, Call the Banners, Fandom Empire, Star Wars Wastelands, kind of like all into one with everything we're talking about tonight. And I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot of Westeros to talk about, thanks to Mr. Loose Lips Sink Ships. And that's probably what I'm most excited for tonight is the Westeros stuff because it was fun to talk about some of it with Johnny. We kind of went light on it last week because we knew you would be back this week, and it just feels right having us here.
It does. You mentioned Wastelands in the notes. You say that you've got something Wastelands related that you wanted to make mention of. Do you want to do that now or towards the end of the show?
They were notes from last week that weren't removed.
Ha! So that announcement.
We'll remind people that House of the Empire will host Star Wars Wastelands themed hangouts, get-togethers over the course of 2026 when we can can do so, and we might have one next week, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's going to be some really fun ones in store. We've found a way to do some online games that we can all play, watch-alongs or reviews of big things that are coming out next year. Obviously, Star Wars is releasing Mandalorian and Grogu, and then you've got towards the tail end of the year the big Avengers film that's coming out. So there's plenty of stuff for this pod and this channel to talk about, and if we can do it in a more casual and fun environment that Wastelands has to offer, then that's something worth pursuing. So, y'all be sure to like and subscribe to the channel so that you know when you're getting a House of the Empire and when you're getting stuff from Wastelands, or if you're getting something else entirely. It's always good to give us a follow so that you know exactly what's going on and when. But like you said, it's a jam-packed show, so let's go ahead and just head on over to House Skywalker to kick things off with the galaxy far, far away tonight. With the House of Skywalker, Shawn Levy is going through a lot of details about Starfighter. One of the big reveals came from Star Wars Newsnet that he has been inspired by Return of the Jedi, and there are some changes that took place in the third act of his script, which those final acts, those third acts, really help bring a film together and give it that satisfying conclusion. And so, do you feel like Return of the Jedi is the appropriate one to be pulling that from? Because I have my own mixed thoughts about Return of the Jedi. We're not reviewing it on this episode. We're actually discussing Empire for our Gauntlet of not a Gauntlet that is happening, the Gauntlet of Thrones. But then just our Flixbusters review is going to be about Empire. But Return of the Jedi being a inspiration, a template. I'm not sure how I feel about it. How do y'all feel about that being the source material that he's referencing?
For me personally, I think I'm in the same boat with you. Like when we did our Star Wars movie ranking here in episode one of House of the Empire, I gotta tell you, excuse me, I gotta tell you, Return of the Jedi is not high on my list.
Mhm.
I think it's far and away the worst of the original trilogy films. Um, and I don't really know what to think about that, other than please, for the love of God, don't be Ewok inspired.
I hope
Um,
not.
I don't think that movie, from what we've heard, is going to necessarily have the Ewok tone. I think the tone might be more about the title of the movie, Return of the Jedi, than anything else, but that's speculation. But and to Shawn Levy's credit, he says it himself. Like, um, he goes on to say that I think it's something like the cool thing would be to say it's like Empire. Well, yeah, why why the hell not, right? But I wouldn't say I'm worried about it. I just found it a little bit surprising. And sorry, I'm having a hard time reading that font. Might be time for me to get some glasses.
I have the quote
If
here towards the bottom third of the article. Yay me for having my tabs open. The direct quote is, "Everyone's like, which Star Wars movie is Starfighter most inspired by? If I'm being honest, I know the cool answer would be Empire. Sure." And sort of the inarguable answer would be A New Hope, but it's kind of Jedi. Is Jedi because the combination of theme, levity, adventure, heart, spectacle. Somehow that movie just got it right for me. Uh, Randy, those thematic elements in comparison to how Jedi executes it, how does that make you feel about that comparison being drawn to Starfighter?
Well, for obviously, you two are a bunch of haters because Return of the Jedi is one of my favorites, but I also have personal reasons for that. So I think we can't. I mean, we can look at it as just the overall presentation, not so much story or anything like that. I feel like there were some really there's great space battles, which I think of especially against the Death Star, second Death Star. That whole space battle itself was really good. Uh, I like the idea that he's trying to bring some of the levity that was in Return of the Jedi, that bring that back. We don't need more Ewoks. As I was like, great, we're going to Endor. Lovely. We already did that with Battlefront 2 when EA took a crack at it. So, but honestly, I think it's not horrible, but I also feel like he's just taking elements. He's not taking note for note story or uh, any types of themes. I think it's really going to be more or less the feel and just kind of just maybe characterizations in terms of um, maybe the kid represents, maybe the kid or even Ryan Gosling's character has a more of a Luke feel to him or a Han feel to him. Like, I think that's where he's kind of trying to go with some of this stuff versus giving us a story that feels like Return of the Jedi. So, given how many pots this dude has his hands in, and the fact that everything he touches is comes out really well done. You know, obviously we have recency bias with Stranger Things, but still, I feel like this has a chance to be what everybody's hoping it's going to be, and we finally get that big blockbuster Star Wars movie that we've sorely been lacking for years. And no offense to Mando and Grogu, I feel like that's probably going to end up around this, say, Solo level in terms of money wise. But this has to feel like they're really gonna try to give their all and finally get the fans back on their side for a change, and this could do it.
Well, he says that the third act uh, was completely changed. That's the title of the article. Sean, when you think about the third act of Jedi, obviously there are a lot of feelings about Ewoks, and Dustin in the chat is probably trolling us just a little bit, saying that we need more Ewoks. Ewoks aside, Randy makes a good point that the uh, the dog fighting and the action sequences up in space are very well done, and probably some of the higher up space sequences that we get in the entire saga. I wouldn't necessarily say the very best, but it's up there. When we're thinking about the title of this film being Starfighter, how do you think the inspiration from those dogfights could translate into a movie that's coming out in the mid 2020s?
Well, for my money, the one thing the original trilogy still has on everything, in my opinion, whether it's the shows, the prequels, the sequels, is none of them have been able to replicate the space battles in the original trilogy. A lot of the newer stuff feels like it's on fast forward and it doesn't have time to breathe and it's CG heavy. And you got to remember, all those space battles in the original trilogy are done with models on blue screen and drive-bys on a pickup truck. And they've done a little bit of that with The Mandalorian, to give Lucasfilm credit. Um, but, for me, Return of the Jedi is the second best space battle ever, right behind A New Hope. And I think that the tension, I feel like there's way more tension in A New Hope than Return of the Jedi, specifically just because you get to follow Luke, right? Where Return of the Jedi, like, what are your stakes? Lando, who we spent almost no time with. In reality, like, think about how much time you spend with Lando in the original trilogy, and the most time you spend with him is honestly at Jabba's palace. Um, there's not a lot of time. There's not a lot of stakes out there in terms of people were following wedges there, but he's an extra essentially in the original trilogy. And I think if it can capture anything space battle wise from the original trilogy, then they're on the right track for sure.
Uh, I guess I'm slightly confused about your ranking of dogfights, because I thought you really, really loved the Battle of Coruscant.
I do. I do. I think the Battle of Coruscant and Revenge of the Sith is incredibly well done. But when you think about it, it doesn't last very long. Anakin and Obi-Wan are on that ship relatively quickly. The buzz droids are on Anakin or on Obi-Wan's ship, what, like 90 seconds into the movie after that long panning shot. It's a wonderful battle that, by the way, we'll never see it more than likely, is much longer than what we see in the actual finished film. The Revenge of the Sith was a much longer film than what we got. But specifically, that opening battle sequence, we got less than half of. That's
Give me the
straight out of
extended
George
cut,
Lucas's
damn it.
house. Right? Like, there's some money to be made. Give us some extended versions of those movies. Fuck giving us the untouched, unedited shit. Give us extended versions. I love the Battle of Coruscant. I think it's by far and away the best space battle there is in the prequels. But I would also argue the best dogfight in the prequels is Obi-Wan and Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. But I don't think that compared to the original trilogy, I don't think that level of tension is there either.
We may have to agree to disagree, I suppose.
Well, I think what he's trying to get at is that we knew Anakin and Obi-Wan were going to survive, so there was no real threat. That plot armor.
Did we ever think that the main character we've been following for the whole movie was going to get shot down by Vader?
Fair point.
Like, Luke
Speaking
has
of
the
agree to
exact
disagree. Wait till Gauntlet of Thrones for that later.
Luke has the exact same plot armor, I feel like. So
Well, if it's your first watch through, you're not going to think that. But by the time you get to Revenge of the Sith, you've seen enough Star Wars that you're like, okay, yeah, these guys are going to survive. But I will say, in terms of another great dogfight that I'm kind of surprised didn't really come up because there was so many cuts in between the action, was the battle above Scarif. There was a lot of good dogfighting in that sequence too.
There was, and I would say that even the Battle of Naboo had some good stuff up in space, because if they don't seed, then everything else down below is for nothing.
Let's try rolling. That's a neat trick.
Aside from Anakin's plot armor, which all of our main stars have plot armor, there was genuine peril for everybody else that was up in that dogfight.
Very true.
Plot armor. Something most Game of Thrones characters wish they had.
You're not wrong.
I don't think Game of Thrones knows what that is or if it exists. Continuing on some of the news that was brought about by Levy, he also confirmed who his composer is going to be for Starfighter. And not going to lie, I was pleasantly surprised to find out that it's going to be Thomas Newman. Growing up on a lot of Pixar films, it was cool to see that somebody who has made a name for himself in several of the scores that I enjoy is going to be crossing over into the galaxy far, far away. They also are giving him credit for Spectre and Skyfall and the Shawshank Redemption, all of those live action films. But I mean, he also did stuff on Finding Nemo. He did stuff on Wall-E. So he's been able to do things in both live action and animation, and now gets to venture into the galaxy far, far away. The article here talks about Deadpool and Wolverine. So he's done a lot in a lot of different capacities and franchises. And in the article from Gizmodo, says that he's going to be classically inspired and try to avoid replicating what Williams has already done. He says, quote, "It may be inspired by some of that, but I knew that I needed a big-hearted movie score from a composer who, like John, doesn't shy away from themes." So that's Levy talking, saying that he reached out to Newman and said, "Would you ever consider," and mid-sentence, Newman cut him off and says, "Send me the script and describe your vision." And Levy did both of those things, and the answer was yes. So, um, yeah, Toy Story also a big one. Dustin in the chat. Sometimes that one escapes me because I haven't seen a Toy Story movie in probably 5 years. Um,
I don't know if people understand how rare that is in 2025 for a Lucasfilm and or Disney project for the director to be allowed to send his script to a composer to get him on board the project. You go back a couple years, and there is no chance in hell Disney is allowing that for Star Wars, for Marvel, for nothing. You are not giving your script out to a composer. You can identify what your movie's about and tell them about some of the themes and the basic plot. But the fact that the composer got his hands on the script, that's pretty wild for today's day and age.
I honestly hadn't considered that because I don't. I guess I don't always have a good grasp on the production process and what is and what isn't allowed. So to think about it from that POV, that is a pretty big deal. Um, Maybe because he's trustworthy. I don't know. Maybe because he's already done stuff for Disney. They feel like, yeah, we can trust you with some of this IP because of what you've done for us in the past. I don't know. Do you feel like that plays a factor into it, Randy, or no?
It might, but you got to figure just in the movies alone, you can take Disney out of it. He's scored some pretty big ones and done really well with it. And it's fine if he's only, I mean, if he's classically, not trying to be John Williams, trying to make it his own, but also have that Star Wars feel to it. I mean, Joel McNeely did the same thing with the Shadows of the Empire soundtrack that he did. So it's doesn't have to be John Williams, but if you're trending in that direction where it feels like Star Wars music, if it feels the score makes you think Star Wars when you hear it, that's all that really matters. And given what this individual has done, I think he's going to knock it out of the park. And I think it's kind of cool that he's been, I would say, honored to get a look at the script and kind of start getting a feel for what he's going to have to do musically. Because you know what? That's not a horrible thing to have happen, because at least if he understands the characters better, he can create something that's more emotionally charged that's going to resonate well with the audience.
Well, thinking back on some of my favorite scores from Pixar specifically, um, think about some of the work that he did on Toy Story, where it feels very adventurous and whimsical, which is exactly what is supposed to be evoked from toys going on an adventure. I think about the sequence when Nemo is getting ready to go on his first day of school. Um, and for whatever reason, to me, it sounds exactly like what you're supposed to hear when you're underwater. The hustle and bustle of the reef creatures passing back and forth, the sense of nervousness and excitement from the way that the tempo goes up and down. Um, and then I think one of his best pieces, I would argue, is Define Dancing from Wally, where he and Eve are just outside of the Axiom and they're dancing and experiencing um, space and dancing for the first time. Um, the images and the emotions that that piece evokes, it feels like sci-fi, but it also feels romantic, almost like you're combining fantasy with a waltz. And so to have that kind of variety in his repertoire definitely gives me hope for the Star Wars franchise. Um, and then having experience with action pieces like Deadpool and Wolverine, he also seems to know his way around something that is action packed. And hopefully, Sean, this movie is going to have some of those dogfights. It's going to have some action sequences, and sounds like he may be up for the task.
Yeah, I mean, all the confidence in the world in Shawn Levy. The talent in front of the camera and behind the camera with this movie is just it would remind you of what you see with like a Christopher Nolan film and the way that he does things. So I have a lot of confidence that they're going to do it the right way, but we'll see what happens. These everything can look. I mean, Zach, you host, you broadcast sports games, all sorts of different types. Please don't do that again. Well, sorry, the wife grabbed the cat, and yeah, that didn't go well. Um, the You host or broadcast sports games. How many
Hmm.
times have you seen on paper that Team A should probably beat Team B, and it doesn't quite turn out that way?
Yeah, I mean it's the game that ended my season. The district champions were playing, the lower seed from the next district over, and they ended up winning in the first round, and the other team that I covered didn't even make the playoffs. And so, yeah, it was that exact scenario that ended my season and sent me into just full-time podcasting for the next month and a half. I honestly don't know what to do with myself because I've found myself actually playing video games for once, and guess what? That's also football. So I don't have a whole lot. I don't have a whole lot of range. If I'm not broadcasting football, I'm playing football. So, um, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because it happened to me.
Well, I mean, I can think it looks great on paper all I want, but until we see this thing come May 2027, we just don't know what to expect or what it's going to look like when it's all said and done. Dustin says he'd die happy if Hans Zimmer does Star Wars. He was my number one choice post John Williams, and I'm afraid I have some bad news for you because unless something changes, he has emphatically stated he will never do a Star Wars movie. So, money talks, but
I was
in my
literally about to
opinion,
say it depends on how many zeros are at the end of that check.
yeah, I'm not sure I want him to do a Star Wars movie if he doesn't have the passion for it. But I mean, like, take a look at like Pirates of the Caribbean. Take the score of that first movie away, and that's Zach used to use this saying, "One of five films you'll never say no to," and that's one of my five films I'll never say no to. But take Hans Zimmer's score away from that movie and replace it with something generic that you see in most movies and isn't special, and that movie does not hit the same way. So if he's not passionate about doing Star Wars, then I don't want him to do it. That's simple.
If it's just a Jurassic Park 3 film score, then no, I don't want any part of that Pirates movie.
Oof. Oh, that's a deep pull, man. Wasn't
Dude,
expecting that one.
dude, I mean, no slight to John Powell. He's done other great stuff, but when your most iconic sound from that film is the satellite phone, that means something's fucked up with your film score. So, um, yeah, that's all I'll say on that. Going back to the
Um,
going back to the galaxy far, far away. Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
I just wanted to point out that Shawn Levy also spoke about how he had to change the entire third act of his film, and I don't know if you guys remember, but one of the rumors we talked about was that my God, I'm forgetting names here. Ryan Gosling's character, I wanted to say Reynolds there. Ryan
Mm,
Gosling's character was trying to get the kid to a Jedi who we believed was Rey at the time. Now I can't help but wonder if the Jedi that the kid gets to, if that's still in play, is in fact Ben Solo somehow. Um, I don't know, but I'm not worried about it. It's not the same as like shoot an entire film and then you go, oh, the third act isn't working. We have to reshoot the entire third act of the film. He wrote the script, something changed. They rewrote the third act, and then they filmed the movie. They're still filming as we speak. So I know there's some people trying to play this out as if it's, one of the other things that got reshot and didn't pan out, but it's not the same scenario at all.
man, if it turns out to be Ben Solo, then that's one of the most powerful online fan petitions I've ever seen. is to bring that son of a bitch back. I I hope you're wrong. That's all I'll say.
And somehow Ben Solo returned.
You know, I had a clip from, I don't want to go too long with this, but I had a clip from Rise of Skywalker pop up on my X feed today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And right, I know, terrible movie. But you know what's not a terrible scene in that movie is the Adam Driver Harrison Ford exchange, with Carrie Fisher being unavailable for it, and Harrison Ford's not even credited in the movie. It's an uncredited.
Unavailable. You make it sound like she was off doing another movie.
Well, I mean, she may have been deceased at the time, but that certainly didn't stop
May
them
have.
from using.
Allegedly.
She may or may not have been in the ground by that point.
um,
God.
it didn't stop them from using her in that movie in just truly a terrible way that didn't do the character any justice whatsoever. Character should have been recast. Carrie Fisher would have wanted the character to be recast too. She's story first, not herself first when it comes to that thing. But I actually think that scene is great. It's wonderful. It's short. It's only like 2.5 minutes long. But I just thought to myself, oh, hey, something redeeming about that fucking awful movie.
Now my score for it when we get to Flixbusters is definitely going to bust it more than flick it. So
That might be our first bust.
I don't know. There may be others down the pipe, but we'll see. One other piece of business from the galaxy far, far away. This is related to Ahsoka. Actually, you were talking about recasting with Carrie Fisher. There may actually be some recasting in Ahsoka season 2 because Claudia Black, who played the role of the Great Mother, was not able to make it out to London for the season 2 shoots. And she frames it in such a way that it's like they could not pay me what I needed to be paid as a single mom to keep all of my responsibilities going on at home in Los Angeles. It was not something that they could make happen, and therefore I had to bow out for season 2. First of all, just overall thoughts on that, Randy, and then second of all, what about the Great Mother do you think is recastable, or do you think they're just going to write her off?
So it's kind of weird. I guess I didn't pay attention to the credits. I was like, hey, I know that actress. Wait, she played that role? Oh, damn. Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Hmm.
But I don't know. It's one of those things where because of the amount of makeup used, and it's easily recastable. Not that her performance was bad, but it's not going to be as recognizable as, Rory McCann as, so it's a role that I feel like can easily be recast just because of the amount of makeup that she had to wear. But it's a bit of a bummer to know that they weren't willing to give her what she needed. But if it's not even for a whole lot in season 2, I guess you're only going to pay someone for as much time as they're going to be, in a season. If it's only like maybe 5 minutes here in an episode and 5 minutes there in an episode, I guess that really isn't going to warrant probably the amount of money she would have needed to be able to fly, across the world to film her scenes. So, because it feels like there's no real context there beyond of what she needed versus what her role actually was going to be. So, and because of that, yeah, it's just better off recasting her. I mean, obviously, if they really wanted her to do she could still do the voiceover and, from LA. So it's like, it's not that big a deal, but obviously you can see how it could be perceived as that big of a deal just for the very fact that you don't know anything beyond what she wanted to be able to travel across the world.
Yeah, context is definitely a big part of this because we don't. Well, I feel like we don't have all of the details, and when we're getting it from just one side, it's a little tough to tell for sure. But Sean, to play the devil's advocate for a second, we can only imagine how much Disney must be paying for Rosario Dawson, who is very in demand these days, has been for the better part of the last decade or so. Um, so they're willing to write a pretty big check for their star, but apparently can't make accommodations for a single mother. That part is the part that does kind of give me a little bit of cause for concern, because if this is the way that that it's being made out to be, um, it's kind of weird that Disney's that unbalanced that they can't make space for their talent like that.
Um, uh, I, this is not directed towards you, Zach. Just so we're clear, you're just the one asking the question. But cry me a fucking river. Are you kidding me? She's a glorified fucking extra who has one main speaking role in the entire fucking series. And Randy, I feel like you and I can talk about this. We just did a watch through of the series on Patreon.
Yep.
One. That's it. Not that she doesn't have the odd line here or there, but where she actually has to say a full fucking sentence or two, it's only during the Morgan Elsbeth friggin' ritual. Like, what does she want? She's a glorified fucking extra who's completely fucking covered. Take your trip for London, pay your goddamn babysitter, and fucking do your job. Like, I'm sorry, it's not Rosario Dawson. It's not, forgive me for how I handled the last subject, Carrie Fisher. It's a glorified extra who probably has other good, speaking roles in other shows. Randy said he knew her from something, but like in this particular instance, she had almost nothing to do, and Randy didn't even know it was the actress that he knew. Like, it, cry me a fucking river is my response to that. Yeah, I think Disney does some shady things a lot. I don't think this is one of them.
I mean, the things I remember her from are Farscape, which was late 90s,
Never
early
heard of it.
2000s. It was a sci-fi series, but she was also in Pitch Black with Vin Diesel briefly. Obviously she died, but but it's just like she's had a career. It's not like she hasn't been on shows. It's just
she looks like Timu Charlize Theron. Like, sorry, but like,
oh wow, that's fucking great. Dustin's trolling over here.
He is the chat section tonight. That's okay. I think my wife said
Shawn
she
hates
might.
single moms. That's not true. Let's not put that out there in the world. I have all the respect in the world for single moms, but there is someone who used to come on this channel. I'm going to name names. Actually, I think Zach might have named his name a couple weeks ago, but and he works as an extra in productions up here in Ontario, Canada. And I know what he got paid. He was an extra on what's that Star Trek show called? The most recent one that came out, live action one.
Is
Is
it
it Discovery? Is
Discovery?
that what it's called? I think
Well,
that. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
Discovery and Strange New Worlds.
Yeah. Let me tell you, that guy made my paycheck, and I work as a bus driver where I'm in control of the safety of 70 children every single day. Look like kibbles and fucking bits to be an extra. And I don't believe for a second she was getting as little as he was. So, it is what it is. Kudos to her, though. Hey, I'll give her this. She could have went with it, but she said no. So obviously, and Zach, you can speak for this a bit, her self-worth was more than what they were offering. And if there's something that I can say, cool, awesome, I give her props for that. But just don't whine about it either. You know what I mean?
I guess even if you're a glorified extra, you're still a public figure because somebody wrote an article about it. So it's still out there in the world, and it's still available on Star Wars Newsnet to go take a look at if you so choose. But that I think that's pretty much all that we've got for the galaxy far, far away, which all things considered, we got through all of that in what, just over a half hour, 35, 40-ish minutes. So not too shabby as we get
Second
ready.
longest topic today.
Second longest. Yeah. Buckle up because we're headed over to a very long element as we do a deep dive into the House of Stark. Very appropriate that when we do House Stark, we've got Westeros as my background. Winterfell, eh, still one of those places that I wish I could visit in real life. I will always be upset that it's not a visitable place. But the biggest one that came out, and it was actually announced on socials, and then other places like Variety started picking it up. It's been officially confirmed that season 4 of House of the Dragon is happening and is coming in 2028. We've got the third season coming up summer of 2026, and then we're also going to get at least a second edition of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which, considering it's 3 novellas, pretty safe to assume that it'll get a third one. But if it doesn't, it's going to be kind of weird that only 2 of the storylines got covered and not the third one. But it kind of seems like they're getting set up to alternate one year after another. Aside from this year, which will be a double dose, everything afterwards for the next 4 or 5 years is going to have kind of that alternating. One year we get this, the next year we get something else. Shawn, I know you've got some thoughts on that. You had some very emphatic thoughts on the last segment, so why don't you lead us off?
So I'm slightly worried about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, just based off what you've told me, because you've actually read some of it or all of it. I'm not sure. But
Not all. I've read the first of the 3 stories.
Yeah, I haven't. From what I understand, is what people are saying. Those that like to be loose lip sync ships. It's hard. I mean, if George R. R. Martin's going to run his mouth, then why not other people on the project, right? And it sounds like people are responding really positive to it, and that it's a different tone of show compared to Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, and that the episodes are also shorter too. You're not getting 1 hour episodes. To my understanding, most of them are in like that 30 to 40 minute range, which would be different for HBO. But I'm excited for it. I apologize if I skip ahead here. I'm not trying to. Brain's going nuts.
By all means.
But I think you're going to get the rotating one. It's like 2026, and that's another thing I was going to mention off the top of the show. But like, you never want to discourage people from watching your channel. And there's more people to watch after the fact than live. But if you don't like Westeros or Game of Thrones material, this might not be the channel for you in 2026, considering how extensively we do review episodes for Westeros projects. There is 14 episodes of material coming out next season, which means at least 14 weeks of this, and we usually have a couple follow-up weeks and 2 or 3 leading weeks. You're looking at about half of this year of this channel being primarily Westeros-based stuff. And I'm okay with it. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if it's going to be alternating, though. We know in 2027, all they've announced is it will be A Night of the Seven Kingdoms Season 2. That's a pretty easy show to turn around year after year. I can almost guarantee you A Night of the Seven Kingdoms Season 3 will cut, as long as the written material is ready, will be with 2028 as well. There'll be 2 that year, I believe. The things that are up in the air here are the things that are mentioned later on, which we'll touch on. The Thrones sequels that are in development, which Talking Thrones, which big time Game of Thrones, Westeros Laker talked about a couple nights ago. So like that's up in the air, and there's a few other prequels in development. And I really think what they're trying to do here is eventually have it so that you have one, um, like a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms serves as like the really cheap, inexpensive turnaround show that you will get yearly for at least 3 years. And I have no doubt they have another thing like that in development. And then I think the real uh, turnaround is going to be, or sorry, the rotating stuff will either be House of the Dragon for now, and likely um, the Aegon the Conqueror show as long as it gets picked up, because it's done, it's written. It's just now it's a matter of at least season one's written. Mattson Tomlin, who was the co-writer on the Batman and the Batman Part Two, did that, and I have a feeling that show is going to get picked up. Um, I think it's a very strong possibility. Uh, but I think those are the shows that are going to rotate. I think A Night of the Seven Kingdoms we're going to get every year. But I think you're going to get like the bigger shows that just can't, given today's industry, turn around year over year. It really feels like they're putting their eggs in the Westeros basket.
Which is something that you and I have speculated on and discussed and even hoped for to certain degrees, for probably the better part of 7 or 8 years now, is having that regular content to discuss, whether it's long form or short form. Randy, this news of more from this world and at different eras, different timelines. And the next piece that we're going to be talking about is it's not just these two that we're in for. That type of news has to be pretty exciting, doesn't it?
The way I look at it, as long as it's done well, it's always going to be exciting. You don't want anything rushed. You don't want anything that's not going to endear you to characters. Obviously, the Night of the Seven Kingdoms being, novellas, makes it different in the sense of you only have like a real small sample size of like the characters and the world building that was done in those. So now it's clearly going to be left up to HBO to broaden everything up, just make the world bigger, make it feel bigger, uh, give something more to some characters that you may have not seen a whole lot of in the books. And as long like I said, as long as it's done well and it doesn't feel like it's rushed, it doesn't feel like piecemealed together at the last minute. Um, I think it's going to be great. Obviously, with whatever else comes down the line, besides those two, uh, we all know that HBO is going to give them the love and care that they tend to deserve. We could just sit there and complain about, some Game of Thrones seasons that got a bit rushed, but unfortunately, it happened. It's done. It's the only thing we can hope is that, especially with like House of the Dragon, that they've learned from those mistakes and that they give us a real satisfying ending, since we know there really isn't much left. And that's kind of a shame when you really think about it, because I feel like these characters could go on beyond what they've got slated, but we also know that since there is books about them, that we can only go so far with those characters. And that's why I'm kind of hoping, like, no, like we're gonna talk about the sequel series. I'm kind of hoping that they'll take some liberties and really give us something special, and to help us really get back into that love of some of those characters that we haven't visited in a long time.
Well, you mentioned that there's source material that kind of limits the storytelling a little bit. Um, Ryan Condal, one of the showrunners for House of the Dragon, um, says that he's currently in the process of writing season four, and that he's going to let that writing kind of determine whether a season five is even warranted. So we've got number four confirmed. Depending on where he takes the story, could end up becoming season five? Question mark. If HBO greenlights it? Question mark. Um, Sean, do you feel like it will have run its course by the end of the fourth season, or do you want 5 seasons worth of House of the Dragon?
Like Randy said, if the writing is good and the show warrants it, then give it to us. I would suggest if you look at what they did with season two, how certain things were supposed to happen at the end and aren't, and now will happen at the beginning of season three. It kind of feels like we might be in for more of that. So, and it should be noted that they had already previously confirmed House of the Dragon would only be 4 seasons. So this is already a change in thinking, and it's not just Condell saying it; it's in some of the executives at HBO saying it as well. So that tells you either one, they're not happy with the development of some of the other projects, and they're going to try to stretch this out, or two, they're just going to keep adding projects. And I do like that they're not going to shoehorn or not shoehorn, but like just try to hit a number for the sake of hitting a number. Like, let the story tell itself. And don't forget, House of the Dragon season one was 10 episodes. When they first started talking about doing this, that means you were looking at 4 seasons. They said right out of the gate that this would probably be a 4 season show. But that is when they were planning 10 episode seasons. They had to dial it back for production, post production stuff, budget reasons. And, my math in the pre show might not have been good, but let's try this again. If there was supposed to be 4 seasons to begin with of 10 episodes, that's 40 episodes, correct? Well, that tells me that a fifth season would really only be 2 additional episodes more than what they originally planned. I think they're seriously considering a fifth season. Obviously, ratings wise, they need to see how it plays too. If it starts to tank, they're not going to do it.
It sounds like there's going to be some pretty major stuff in season 3 that's going to get people excited for season 4. But again, we were talking earlier about how Game of Thrones doesn't have any plot armor. If the plot takes away all of the characters that we care about, the ones that we're interested in following, then no, there may not be very much interest in a fifth season because all of our favorite people are dead. So it really kind of depends on the outcome of season 3, the outcome of season 4, the ratings of season 4, like you said, before we even truly find out. Meanwhile, in the midst of all of that, there has also been confirmation from the man himself that there is more than just those two franchises going on. At the 2025 Iceland Noir Festival, in addition to already known prequel spin offs, there's also a quote, sequel or two, end quote, in development. This is a direct quote from a pull quote from George R. R. Martin. Apart from A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms and House of the Dragon, there are other Game of Thrones spin off projects in development. A majority are prequels, and there are several in development, maybe 5 or 6 shows. And I'm not developing them alone, I'm working on them with other people. And yes, there's a sequel or two in the works. And quote, we've wanted a sequel, we've wanted Jon Snow, that didn't pan out. There have been other prequels that we have talked about. You mentioned Aegon the Conqueror. I really want 10,000 Ships because I'm a fan of nautical adventures. We've talked about an Arya spin-off show as a sequel of some sorts as she goes west of Westeros. There's tons of potential. But is this getting to be too big too fast? Randy, can HBO really keep up with all of these things that Martin says are in the works? And are we going to get kind of what do you call with it? Overstimulated? Are we going to get fed too much Thrones too fast, and it gets to be a fatigue instead of something we get excited about?
I think it really is going to, for these particular series, whatever they may be, however many there may be, you have to look at the story, the quality of the story. If you're talking about going back to characters that you kind of grew to love, that you watched grow before your eyes, now you get to see like the older version of them. You sit there as like old man Jon Snow as he's gotten older and wiser and continued his adventures, or Arya growing up having to make more adult decisions than what she has previously done. I mean, there's lots of things you can go with, or you can go the prequel route, which we all seen many different series take that go that direction, whether it be Star Wars, uh, Star Trek, Harry Potter, anything DC or or Marvel. We've seen all that sort of thing take that either road. And could we end up with the Westeros fatigue? Of course, that's something that's very possible, depending on how much they give us all at once. But if it's good, how can you deny it? See, that's half the problem. It's like you look at Marvel and the MCU and DC, and we've got superhero fatigue. There is no doubt in my mind that that's something we have hit, and we've had some good movies here and there, but once we got to Endgame, that's it's been hard pressed to that every Marvel movie's been under the microscope, because it doesn't they're looking for that same high, that same peak. We get that with Spider-Man movies, but what about everything else? um, we get the Batman with Pattinson in DC, and we're looking for that high again, and we're just we get Superman, and which wasn't a horrible movie by any means. I liked it, but it doesn't have that same feel. Now we're talking about Game of Thrones sequel series or prequel series, whichever ones they decide to go with. If I'm going to come back to characters I'm familiar with, I'm going to want something that's going to make me be to fall in love with these characters again. I'm going to want to see that type of development. I don't want to see them going through the motions of, hey, we just dealt with this before, or we know what to do, or something that's feels similar to what they've dealt with but is something completely different. I want to make sure that if these happen, the characters are treated with the most utmost respect. The fans are treated with the utmost respect, because fans aren't stupid. They sit there and they will call out your bullshit if it's bullshit. And that's the beauty of fandom at times. So ultimately, it can go either way. You just have to hope that HBO is smart enough to take their time, make sure that what they're going to put out there is of the highest quality, and that it doesn't feel like just a rehash of the same old shit we've seen before.
Sean, when taking a look at these different properties that HBO has licensing over, obviously the White Lotus has been very popular as of late. Um, they have some other pieces that they've been able to develop. The Last of Us kind of comes to mind, perhaps, or even Welcome to Derry, which we're going to talk about later on in the program. They've got their fingers in a lot of things, but their biggest pot seems to be Westeros. Um, do you feel like they're dipping too deep if there are this many that are in development? Because we were just looking at the timelines in the last article. Even if we add, let's say, two more spin-offs before House of the Dragon is finished, we're looking at trying to keep up with possibly three or four different shows set in three or four different timelines. Um, yes, the fans are intelligent. I would say Game of Thrones fans are probably some of the most intelligent, but for the people that are just casual viewers, uh, is it at any point ever going to get to be too much for the people that bring in those types of metrics and views and numbers that finance the show in the first place?
Um, there's the possibility they go overboard with it, but the way I see it is I don't think you're ever going to see more than two shows in 1 year. Um, and when you think about it, like we just spoke about it, this year that means 14 episodes. Say if they have, post A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, they have two main shows. That's still only 16 episodes. You go back and you look at Smallville or Supernatural or Arrow, or I think you watched the show 100. I know Jay did. I know your co-host from IPC, Ben, did. Um, those are 20 plus episode shows, guys. So no, I don't think they're anywhere close to being too much. In fact, I will go the opposite route and say they've taken way too long to get to this point. They should have been at this point 5 years ago. And development's a slow process, but um, as long as they like when you think about House of the Dragon, and I haven't done a rewatch of season one in a long time, since just before season two came out. Um, they do a really good job of explaining where you are and where it is in relations to the main show that came out, Game of Thrones. And I think you'll see the same thing with the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And they just do a really good job of setting the table. If they can continue to do that, then I think they're fine. And let's not forget, I don't think we'll ever see it, although they could probably make a bunch of fucking money off of it. There's a very expensive pilot that exists. Sorry, there's two pilots that exist, one very expensive, one not so much, that we will probably never see. The original Game of Thrones pilot, which is not what you saw on TV, that didn't go nearly as well, apparently. And we'll probably never see. Well, maybe if they do an extra special 4K box set, and the main selling point is you get the pilot from the original Game of Thrones, that might make people buy it. But the pilot I would like to see, and I know this is kind of off topic a little bit, the point is they exist. And the point is they can shoot a pilot for these things. Remember, House of the Dragon was picked up before anything was shot. No pilot, automatic pickup, just based on what the show was about. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms was picked up without anything being shot. But the show Blood Moon, which took place, what was it, 1,000 years before Game of Thrones, was not. And it had a big name attached to it. Naomi Watts was the star of it. And it went back to basically it was the premise of the first Long Night. And I would have liked to see what that is. But my point is, just because something seems like it's going to happen doesn't mean that it will. I think if they're confident enough in a project, they will greenlight them before they shoot anything. I don't think they want to go down the Blood Moon experience again, because you and I covered it on the Legacy of Westeros. I want to say, and I could be wrong, but they spent like $60 million just on the pilot, and it all went for nothing. I don't think they ever want to do that again.
I could work every day for the rest of my life and still not make as much money as a pilot that never made its way into existence. That's crazy for me to think about, and I try not
$60
to.
million. It's fucking nuts.
Tell me you have lots of money without saying you have lots of money. Oh yeah, we just blew $60 million on something that's never going to see the light of day. Pocket change. Oh well. Moving on.
Reminds me of Coyote versus Acme. They tried to use it as a tax write-off, and I was like, no, I actually want to see that shit.
That is coming out, right? Didn't I hear that is finally going to come out?
I think somebody picked it up, yeah. But I don't remember who, or if it's going to make it to theaters, or if it's going.
I want to see that too. I'm not gonna lie.
But yeah, I mean, I would watch it and then maybe try to take a look at the executive notes and see what it was exactly that they didn't like about it that made them want to cancel it. It's like, didn't like this, didn't like this character wasn't believable, this moment didn't work right. Like, what were the technical thoughts? What were the things that went into that decision making process to just axe it? Because I think you're right. I think some sort of a featurette or some sort of exclusive look would be very, very interesting to see, just to see what didn't get approved as opposed to what usually does get approved.
Release date for that is August 28th, 2026.
Oh, okay.
Right around my birthday. Nice. Shawn, you mentioned that there's another YouTuber out there that says that HBO may be taking a more MCU-like approach with Westeros. Can you go into a little more detail about that and what that might mean based on what you just described?
Yeah, so Talking Thrones has a YouTube channel, but he also has a podcast too, and he's been around since like midway through Game of Thrones days. Gets a lot of stuff right. His track record, I had to guess probably 80, 90% right. Um, Came out and said a couple of things. And here's the main points that I would mention. Uh, don't write off the Jon Snow show yet, was the one thing he said. And or a show that involves him, rather. It might not be what they were originally developing. That And then the other thing was he believes, and this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, that you were going to get to a point where you have a primary Westeros show, like big budget, takes 2 years to turn around. We're going to get two of them, and they'll rotate years, but that we'll also have a smaller show, like a Night of the Seven Kingdoms, that goes along with these shows on the rotating years. So, two Westeros related shows a year leading up through, like, I think you said 2029 or 2030. So, like, that would be cool. I'd be down for that. But the other thing you mentioned, which might not be good for book readers who still hold out hope, and I know what Zach's take is on it, and if he wants to, he can share it again. But if George R. R. Martin is actively working on, not just by himself, but a couple of sequels to Game of Thrones, and he still hasn't finished Winds of Winter yet. He's actively working on sequels to a show that he did not like the direction it went in its final season, along with a lot of fans. He's working on sequels to that show and is still, from what we know, no closer at all to finishing the Winds of Winter. I would suggest two things. One, the Throne sequel is a big time priority for HBO, and George R. R. Martin's involved with it and working on it, even though he pretty adamantly, excuse me, didn't like the direction of season 8. And two, I've never really firmly been in this category, but I am now. We are never seeing the Winds of Winter. I don't even think we're going to see it post his death anymore. I think he has his hands tied up in way too much in the fact that he's actively working on sequels to the TV show and not his book doesn't bode well for book readers. And also, there's probably way more money in it for him on the TV side.
Oh, there's absolutely way more money in it for TV, but I still assert that it's done. The only reason that he is working on these things is because he's finished it, and he keeps teasing that he's quote unquote working on it, that he's quote unquote done or whatever, or not done. I say he is, and he's just not releasing it because of all the vitriol that has uh, come across different pages in the past. He's seen how terrible people are on the internet and doesn't want to be subjected to it. So that's why I think it's coming out posthumously, is so that you can't criticize a dead man. You can criticize his work, but you can't criticize a dead man. And that like he's going to keep soaking up all this money that he can, and then he's got it written in his will that he's going to have one big send off, and that'll be like his swan song, his farewell song, is he'll leave us with the winds of winter after he's buried and gone. And then everybody can just make Tumblr posts, Twitter posts, whatever they want about him after the fact, and he won't care because he'll be rich and gone. With that, though, one of our last elements that we do on pretty much every episode here on the show is the Gauntlet of Thrones. We are going episode by episode, matchup by matchup, using ChatGPT, admittedly, to keep track of all of the scores for us and generate random contests. We do not pick these matchups. We merely receive them and review them. And then we have the option to revive certain episodes. So far, the only one that we've revived is season 1, episode 9, Baylor. Everything else that has lost has been cast aside, and we're creating a winner's circle where once we have literally gone through every episode from either Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, then we go back and have the winners play each other. And we will continue to debate and we will continue to pick a winner until there is one ultimate, unequivocal best episode from Westeros. And, at the rate that we're going, we're definitely going to have to start including A Night of the Seven Kingdoms in the rotation. We're definitely going to have to start including season 3 and apparently 4 of House of the Dragon into this rotation. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops as we continue to go through all of this. But I specifically asked to be a part of this particular matchup. I actually gave you all the future matchup last week so that I could be here for this one. That's how much I wanted to be a part of it. Tonight's Gauntlet of Thrones matchup features season 3, episode 4, which is "And Now His Watch is Ended." And it received huge acclaim from critics, according to IMDb, praising the performance of Emilia Clarke. It also marks the final appearance of James Cosmo as Jeor Mormont and covers a lot of bases in one episode, talking about Bran chasing the three-eyed raven. It has Arya, Gendry, and the Hound taken to Beric Dondarrion. Beyond the Wall, the Night's Watch is having conflict with Craster. And then in Astapor, this is the episode where Daenerys finally takes control of the Unsullied. And so there's a lot that's happening in this episode. However, its counterpart is what I would consider one of the best episodes of the entire show, if not the best standalone episode of the entire show. And that is the penultimate episode of season 2, Blackwater. Shawn, you and I have had discussions at great length about Blackwater and the depth that it has, the implications that it possesses, the action sequences, the fact that it seems like this is where the budget finally increased a bit for the show and had a bit more spectacle and some depth to it as far as the number of actors and extras that were on hand for this kind of culmination episode. In spite of all of the big things that happen in this episode, the characters that get killed off, um, the Tyrells in King's Landing are also a part of that season 3, episode 4. Um, Olenna Tyrell has a guest appearance in it, and we all love Olenna. In spite of all of the stuff that is in season 3, episode 4, is there enough there to dethrone Blackwater?
So do you want me to just come out with it? Is like, are we going right to it?
We're getting into it.
So when you said it would be a close matchup, originally I think that's how you had worded it.
I just said it was. I thought I said it was a good debate, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, you could put Blackwater up against, in my opinion, any episode from the first 3 seasons of Game of Thrones. And I do think it's one of the best Game of Thrones episodes that there is. In terms of those first 3 seasons, other than the Red Wedding, Baelor, and Now His Watch has ended, I think it's a landslide. But when it comes to these 3 episodes, Blackwater just doesn't cut it for me. No, I'm fucking with you. Blackwater is probably a top 5 or top 10 Westeros episode ever. One of my favorite stories about Blackwater is, and he can tell it if he wants, is it's how Zach introduced his dad to the show. Um, I I still loved hearing Zach's reaction to Blackwater and seeing it the first time. Um, it's fantastic. It's, to me, once you hit that episode, keep in mind it's only 19 episodes in, a quarter way, the show just takes off. At that point, we haven't had the Jamie versus Brienne fight on the bridge, haven't had the Red Wedding, haven't had a lot of the Night King stuff at this point. Um, it's incredible. And also, the real reason I know Zach's going Blackwater here, because look, Stannis in this episode is fantastic, and I've been waiting for this day for a long time where Zach admits his love for Stannis and how he has just been, playing me all these years about how he doesn't like him. He really does though. Like, he's trying to get his fucking guys to not leave, and he's cowards, and he's ready to fight, and they're trying to drag him away, and it's just between storytelling, score, acting. Think about Blackwater before the fight happens. The tension between Tyrion and Joffrey and Bronn and the Hound, and Cersei and Sansa and everyone inside. Like, it's incredible. The groundwork is laid amazing in this episode. It's one of the best episodes of TV, period. And that's not to take anything away from Now His Watch Has Ended, but it's like that big prize boxing fight you pay for back in the day. You don't care about the undercard. You're paying for some massive blockbuster fight. Maybe once in a lifetime. You might see it a second time, but it's the first time that it's happened. And you don't really care if someone gets knocked out. But what you don't want to happen is someone to get knocked out 1 minute into the matchup. Well, I'm sorry, but Now His Watch Has Ended gets knocked out 1 minute into the matchup. It's not even close to Blackwater. Blackwater, in my opinion, is an episode we're going to be talking about a year from now in what'll probably be like our Sweet 16 or Final 8 or whatever. Blackwater's going to go a long way unless it draws one cruel matchup on the other side.
Randy, I don't know how you follow that.
Yeah, you just throw me under the bus and make me do it. That's how you do it. So looking back, as I've said in the past, I haven't really watched the series as much as either of you two. I haven't read the books. So I have to kind of go off of what stood out to me as memorable. And I'm not going to lie, I actually remember bits and pieces of Blackwater, whereas the other episode, I couldn't tell you what the hell happened unless I looked it up on Wikipedia or something. So just by that alone, it tells me how memorable of an episode it was and how impactful it was. If memory serves me correctly, the location didn't change. It was really just a sole episode dedicated to that battle alone. And the fact that we got to the point where Cersei was afraid that they were going to lose, that she was ready to poison Tommen if it wasn't for Tywin showing up at the end to stop her, essentially. It's that's pretty impactful, because when have you ever known Cersei to just be ready to give up and roll over? Considering her character and through the entire series, this is that one of those times where she thought it was done. And of course, you can always remember those times when Joffrey gets slapped around a little bit. You always love those moments because Joffrey's such a bastard. So it's like those little moments here and there that kind of bring back memories of an episode for me, or what kind of helps me. So I was going to go Blackwater anyway. So it sounds like it's going to be a clean sweep at this point. But yeah, there's really not much more to say beyond what Shawn's already said about the episode. And I'm sure he said even more over the years after he's watched it many times. But no, it was a great episode, and I definitely think it deserves to move on.
for the record, it will be a clean sweep. Um, but I do want to provide a little bit of defense for this episode because I do think it has some pretty big moments. The biggest, most notable one is Gior Mormont dies in this episode, and the Hound fights Beric Dondarrion at the end of this episode. So there's a quote unquote trial by combat that takes place, and Beric falls. He gets revived, but he falls in this episode. Um, and then the very, very end is the negotiation for an army that finally turns the tide in Daenerys's favor. She keeps running into roadblocks and she keeps having people trying to take her life or take her dragons. And she finally outmaneuvers somebody who is in command of an entire city, who is in command of an entire army, and is able to negotiate one of her dragons away in exchange for an entire army, and then pulls kind of a Uno reverse card on him and says, You really think that I can just give my dragons away? They are bound to me. They're going to find their way back to me, even if I do these trades with you. You basically just gave me your army for nothing." And says Dracarys, burns him, and takes off with the army anyway. And it really becomes a turning point for her character where she now has the ability to think and maneuver like somebody in Westeros. She's able to carry herself like a queen, and she's able to start making the difference that she's been talking about making for basically 2 seasons now. Um, so there are some things that are very positive about this particular episode. But this is also one of those sequences where I knew stuff like this was going to happen, because if this episode had gone up against some random episode in season 1, it probably would have advanced. It had some good stuff going for it. It unfortunately drew what we all agree is one of the better episodes of the entire show for all the reasons that have been described just now. The action sequences, the plot development, the fact that it's all kind of a enclosed episode that focuses on one key point. I wouldn't necessarily call it a bottle episode because there are sitcoms that describe the concept of bottle episodes way better, but you don't jump around like you do in other parts of Game of Thrones, where you're looking at what's going on in the Riverlands, you're looking at what's going on in the North, you look at what's going on across the Narrow Sea. Everything is at King's Landing. It's just from different points of view within King's Landing. And so, yeah, the narrative is different. The storytelling is different. The stakes are different than anything we have seen up until this point. And so, for those reasons and several others, most notably being that if I had to introduce somebody to Game of Thrones, and I have done this. If I needed to introduce somebody to Game of Thrones, this is the episode I'm starting with. It hooked my dad, and I'm sure that it would hook other people too. You don't need to know everybody to appreciate the storytelling and the action that takes place in this episode. And so, Blackwater, in my opinion, stands on its own better than anything else in the series. You could just drop in, watch Blackwater, and drop back out. Some of these other great episodes that we're going to end up talking about are very context driven. They're all about the culmination of things that have happened over the course of several seasons and have these big sways or these big ties that have payoffs that have been building for literally 24 episodes or more. Blackwater isn't bound to that. And so those are among the reasons why I'm advancing it into the winners bracket with you guys, because it's it's quite possibly one of the best episodes of the show.
I love your take on it's still how you would introduce people to the show. And I still vividly remember you telling me on air about your which I think you might have told me off air first, but your dad's enjoyment of it. And I think one of the ways to look at it is Blackwater is really like a 1 hour movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like an episode of TV.
It's very reminiscent of the Two Towers. When you think about the night setting and the defense of a castle and how you have to combine your resources and you have the imminent threat that you may lose until the savior swoops in at the last moment in order to turn the tide in your favor. There are a lot of elements that are similar to the Two Towers, but only goes for about an hour, and yet the cinematic nature of it feels like it went for a lot more than that. So yeah, that's why I wanted to be on for this discussion, because I wanted to be a part of advancing Blackwater into the winner's circle. Uh, doesn't necessarily mean I'll be on for every time Blackwater comes up, but I'm gonna try my damnedest to be there for it. Because if I have to choose between uh, the defense of the wall in in future seasons, I want to say it's the season 3 finale, isn't it? If I have to choose
Four.
the 4 finale, if I have to choose between that and Blackwater, I'm choosing Blackwater. So just know that that may be a debate that's on the horizon. But
That could
for
be the finals for all we know,
it could
just depending on what matchups are.
it could be. It very well could be. So for tonight's purposes though, Blackwater is moving on. I'll make sure to notate that on ChatGPT, and we'll have another round for you all on in the next episode, or depending on if we do the special next week. But the next full House of the Empire will have the next round of Gauntlet of Thrones.
Sounds
We
good to
haven't
me, man.
we haven't really talked much about what next week's going to look like. We'll talk about that over the course of this week. So we'll get that figured out in due time. Um, Only 2 more topics to talk about. We're kind of plowing right along through here at only about an hour and a half in, but I would say that some of these are maybe a little bit shorter, depending on how much we want to embellish. We'll find out as we get into the House of Haddonfield. 2 things from the um, horror slash thriller genre have been really popular. One on HBO, one on Netflix. Um, Sean, you and Randy have been watching Welcome to Derry. I have not seen anything yet, but from what I hear, it's been pretty good and been decently received, hasn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that I look, whenever you see a new show coming out and HBO's doing it, chances are that a lot of care has been taken. And I liked the new It movies, the 2 that came out there, 7, 8 years ago, whatever it was. Um, and like quite a bit. Like I like them far better than the original. I know everyone loves Tim Curry, and that's great and all, but when you're looking at the Flixbuster stuff in terms of how we review things, the new It movies are far superior. And this show has such layered storytelling and dives into everything. I wouldn't say everything, but multiple things Stephen King related, because they have the ability to do that. You're getting proper character development. Episodes aren't rushed. You get to know the characters. It feels like you're there with them. You get a lot more than 2 hours with a group of characters and your movie's over. They've done a really wonderful job with this one. And for me, the showrunner on Welcome to Derry is the same guy that's doing the Friday the 13th series, Crystal Lake. So immediately it gives you more confidence in that series. That being said, though, Crystal Lake is not powered by HBO, which can make a massive difference. Like if Game of Thrones came out on the CW, no offense to CW shows, and I love a lot of them, the same level of quality would not have been there. The budget would not have been there. So those things matter. But one of the topics that we've talked about a lot on this channel over the years, it's probably been the main topic, is Halloween. And they have a TV show that is in development. Dare I say, development hell. I think when you see what a show like Welcome to Derry does in terms of layered, in-depth storytelling that is not just surface level, it makes you want something like that for Halloween. And with the success of Derry and how well that is, I don't know if you can deliver a third of what Derry is and then still be totally okay with what Halloween delivers. I think Welcome to Derry has raised the bar. And if I'm anyone involved with that Halloween show right now, I'm sitting here going, okay, instead of trying to rush to get this out here, and it's no rush anymore, but instead of them trying to rush to hit a certain date, I think they need to go back and really try to figure out how can we have layered storytelling? Do we mix in, the Silver Shamrock stuff with the Michael Myers story somehow? Welcome to Derry does a wonderful job of mixing in other lore elements from Stephen King. It starts with The Shining, which plays a massive part in this series, which I didn't expect. I don't know if there was leaks about that or spoilers about that, but it was a complete surprise to me. And also mixes in, at a much lesser scale, Shawshank Redemption. And I think, honestly, as a Halloween fan, as much as I want to see more Halloween, if they were to put out a product that, let's say, is even 25% of what Welcome to Derry is, which, by the way, I think is possible, I'm not going to be satisfied. I won't, because Welcome to Derry has raised the bar. You now don't just willingly go under the bar. You need to sit there and go, okay, well, what can we do to be close to that, if not surpass that? And Halloween fans might not like hearing this, but pump the brakes and find yourself an idea that will allow you the level of depth that Welcome to Derry has had in its storytelling.
No, I agree with you. For me, Welcome to Derry has been such a breath of fresh air in terms of just horror in general. It's even though it has the cheesy moments here and there, it takes itself very seriously and is delivering very compelling characters, story, giving more lore to Pennywise is always a good thing. But in terms of Halloween, what can you do? It's like what can they do beyond trying to develop a story that's not only going to give you obviously people who want to see Michael Myers, but they would need to give you a story that's going to have very endearing characters that you're not going to want to see die, and but also deliver an element of which Halloween's done before of like nobody's safe, but act on it. Don't just pretend you're going to do it. Go ahead and actually do it. Pull the trigger. Uh, I think for now, I agree with you, Sean, that they need to kind of slow things down just a little bit. Uh, really rethink their direction with what they're going to do with Halloween, and just make sure that they are on top of their game and put their best foot forward, because that's going to be really the hardest thing to do. Because, like you said, Welcome to Derry has set the bar extremely high, and it's very possible. I'm not trying to say it for the sake of me being a Friday the 13th fan, but with the same showrunner, Crystal Lake could also give you something similar in terms of just overall quality, as long as NBC puts the bill that HBO did with Welcome to Derry. I don't see it being as effects heavy as Welcome to Derry, but I would hope that with the same showrunner that he just loves horror, and he's going to give you that same attention to detail, that same love and care as he did with Welcome to Derry. But again, this should be, not saying Halloween has to wave the white flag here, but I feel like this time to really kind of sit down and think the proper direction to take Halloween to be able to live up to, or even potentially surpass what we're seeing with Welcome to Derry and potentially Crystal Lake down the road.
Dustin says, I think it is hard to have a character like Michael where the more you know, the less effective it is, versus Pennywise that has more options for the lore to be explored. I completely disagree with this take, and I love Dustin, big time channel, sponsor of the channel, pardon me, here, as well as Jason over at Backtrack Cinema, as well as Ryan over at College Nation. Thank you guys for all that you do. There's so many elements to Michael's story that you can explore. There's elements to Loomis, should they choose to go that route, that they can explore. There's elements of what the hell happened in 1963 to make this kid who, depending on which version of the story you're listening to that exists, was normal in one of them, all of a sudden snaps and kills his older sister. There's so much to do. If you wanted to go the Thorn route, if you wanted to create a new route, the one thing I like about Welcome to Derry is I would argue Pennywise has barely been in it to this point. We've seen a couple of different forms of him when he needs to be there, but it's been a lot of build up about the character. When I was doing the show with Dean, when we were doing Tonight in Haddonfield, we were talking about how a Halloween show, you cannot just have cannon fodder characters like that are in the Friday the 13th franchise for the movies. Most of them, who gives a fuck? They're dead. They were nobodies. You move on. But with a Halloween show, you need to have characters that people can gravitate towards, attach themselves to. Welcome to Derry has that. Welcome to Derry spends time not just telling you what the characters are going through now, but what the characters experienced before the first episode of the show, which allows for layered storytelling, depth, background of the characters, whether you relate to one or whether you don't relate to one. I think as much as it's about Michael Myers in a Halloween show, that it needs to be about whoever these other characters are in the show. It's one of my big reasons why Loomis should be in the show. Don't be a chicken shit. Recast him. Take a chance. Do your homework. And don't fall into these fucking stupid recasts where we gotta cast this guy because he looks like Donald Pleasance. You don't recast someone because they look the role. You recast someone because they can play the role, because they add what was in the character, but also something new to the character. And so Michael can be there for sure. And there's a psychological element of Michael that the Halloween franchise completely lives on without completely addressing what the hell the backstory is in some of the movies. So I do think that Halloween can do it. The question is the budget there? Is the time there? And do you have the right creatives in place to give us interesting, unique characters and subplots? One of the big rumors about the original about the Halloween TV series and Michael being in the penitentiary was we would get to explore subplots to other characters that were in that same penitentiary and what their story is and what kind of psychos they might be. There are so many different ways that you can have a Halloween series and still have Michael be the focal point, but not the only point. If you're just going to do I want Michael to stop. I'm not saying Dustin's saying this, but I see this all the fucking time online. I just want Michael to stalk people and be in the shadows and, my blue lighting, I gotta have my blue lighting. And, you have that already. Go fucking watch it. Put your fucking DVD or your VHS into your machine and watch it. If you're gonna, even for a new Halloween movie, Randy, they could retread shit they've already done and still have it be somewhat successful. But for a TV series, it should be different. It should look different. It should feel different. It should be something new. And now there's a new bar set. And I'll tell you what, when Crystal Lake comes out in 2026, I don't think it'll be the level of Welcome to Derry because, again, HBO is not attached to it. But if it's even half or 2/3 of Welcome to Derry, that is a bar that is going to be very hard to attain for Halloween And in my opinion, I'm going to now change my opinion from earlier this year and go and join Team Randy, and that is still continue development on the TV show, but do it right. It does not need to connect to a movie, and focus on your 50th anniversary movie. It isn't that far when you think about it, guys. It's less than 3 years away. And in terms of the beginning of a development cycle, even for a horror movie, when you start pitching ideas, that's a little longer than what you usually have, and not by much. So do the TV series, do it properly, and don't give us the same old bullshit. Prefer Laserdisc A. If you can get your hands on the Star Wars Laserdiscs,
Oh
they're
man.
worth some cheddar cheese. You know what pisses me off? Is I used to have a New Hope on Laserdisc. I never, ever had a Laserdisc machine. Ever. But I had a New Hope. And I hate to tell you, it got ruined a long time ago. And it's like, you see them selling now for like $400 a piece. And it's like, oh.
So it's interesting is you brought up Loomis as a character, and I kind of started, the wheels started turning, and I was like, you know what? Why don't we go the route of like having like even though yes, set in the world of Halloween, but like have a series like Loomis, the Michael Myers sessions, where you see Loomis interviewing Michael and other inmates, and but seeing the deterioration and the madness start to form in Loomis over the season or seasons, depending on how you want to go, where we get to see him finally deteriorate to the point of what we saw in like Halloween 4. It's like at that point he's willing to just do whatever he can do to stop Michael. And I think that madness was always there even in the first couple movies, but we never really got to see it develop. We never got to see how the strings were pulled to where it became more of, okay, we can fix him. I can fix him, to, okay, he must never see the light of day. And I really do feel like that would be kind of an interesting character study to really take an actor from down here to up here, because you would have to be able to have that range of showing normal, nurturing, to I'm broken, the madness within is corrupting me. It's almost like, Michael corrupts people he's around, that sort of thing.
And if you look at what Welcome to Dairy, without getting too spoiler heavy, if you look at what Welcome to Dairy's done with the inclusion of Shawshank in a minor way so far, but The Shining in a massive way with the Dick Halloran character. If you can
Right.
do that with Welcome to Derry and blend the two things together and make it work, there's no reason whatsoever. Mind you, this is a new story. It's not a sequel. It's more of a retell, from what we understand, to for the Halloween TV series. Or at least that's what it was going to be at one point in time. There's no reason you can't add elements of Season of the Witch in there. No reason whatsoever why that can't be its own subplot in the thing. Or maybe, detective or police officer or whatever was involved in something that had to do with Season of the Witch, and you get that as like a backstory to help build up another character. I think all of those are possible. Loomis is another big one. Smith Grove is another big one. Charlie Bowles is another big one. There's so many different ways to add layers to a Halloween story that could make it interesting and compelling. The problem is half the fan base just wants the same old fucking shit, and it drives me nuts. I won't lie. My take about not wanting the same shit, and kind of almost at times I've mocked people for wanting the same shit, it has driven some people away from the channel in the past. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to wear my heart on my sleeve and say, hey, if you want the same shit, watch the shit that's already out.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. Just because we need something different. Whereas it seems like we're heading a direction with horror that definitely is more storytelling based. I mean, we've seen some movies come out that, even though it's a horror movie, they're the storyline and the acting and just the overall just arc of the entire film has been, for as many, Obviously, you got your people who are in Terrifier or any other slasher. There's like weapons and things like that that kind of give you that story that is sorely missing sometimes from horror movies. And honestly, more of it, because that's how you build new horror fans, is by engaging them in stories that they just can't look away from, not just body count.
No, I agree. And, take a movie like Hush from Mike Flanagan. It's basic, there's not many characters, but that movie is developed in a way that you find out so much about the main character's backstory that adds in so many different possibilities of why is this happening? Who could it be? And in the end, it doesn't particularly matter other than it lets you know about that main character more. So I think that, again, you got to have the right creatives in place. Not everyone can do layered storytelling well. And, between Machete and Brad Caleb Kane, they've done a knockout job on Welcome to Derry. And again, I've only seen the first 5 episodes. I know this upcoming Sunday will be episode 7. I'm really looking forward to finishing this thing off, man, and just getting to talk about it more.
Yep, I'm in the same boat as you. So obviously next week we'll go ahead and knock out those 2 episodes, and then it'll be the finale.
Hello again.
Welcome back.
He's back from the wall.
Back the urinal wall. Yes. It's unfortunately not a show that I've had a chance to get into yet. So I don't have any stake, any dog in the hunt, unfortunately. So I'm glad that there are at least 2 folks that can provide those types of insights. And Shawn, if you need a restroom break, I guess that this segment would be yours next, I suppose. Randy, you and I have gotten ourselves caught up on part 1, volume 1 of season 5 of Stranger Things. It's the final season. The stakes are bigger than they've ever been. Characters are in new circumstances, and then at some points, it also feels familiar. Um, what have your thoughts been on these first 4 episodes that came out over the Thanksgiving break?
So with the first 4 episodes, it was nice because part of it's catching up. Obviously, with the aftermath of season 4 and everything that's happened, it's interesting to see how the characters have kind of grown from that. From, if memory serves me correctly, this is like set a year and a half later, so we get to see kind of how um, the original group has been dealing with everything that's transpired, whether it's the death of Eddie Munson, the cracks in Hawkins that created by Vecna, uh, things like that. We get to see how the characters have either grown or regressed. People start training for what clearly is going to be a huge war for maybe not just Hawkins itself, but potentially the world. From based on what we've seen in those first 4 episodes, it feels like a setup for Vecna wanting more than just Hawkins.
Yeah, I agree. I think what's interesting is that like the government is trying to keep everything contained, and yet there are some components of this, there are some elements of this that definitely span beyond Hawkins, and we get a good look into that, especially in the Upside Down. And I think one thing that really stood out to me about this season, or at least this part of the season, number one, the increase in budget. There's a ton more CGI involved. There's a ton more visits to the Upside Down. There's a ton more crossing over from one to the other. The sets have gotten bigger, and there's more of them. And number two, there's kind of a passing of the baton almost to another generation of child actors. We're still following our favorites. We've still got Dustin. We've still got Eleven. We've still got Mike. We've still got Will. But their voices have changed, their demeanor has changed. They're basically grown-ups now. And you bring in kids like Holly, who was a baby when this show started. Her character was a baby when this show started, and now she's kind of taking on a focal point. What's his name? Derek Turnbow. You know,
Yep.
this is his first big acting career. This kid, this 13-year-old, this is his first big acting gig, and he gets to do it on one of the biggest shows, one of the biggest stages, and that's really, really exciting for him. But at the same time, it's like, man, that's a pretty big undertaking to try to follow in the footsteps of these people that have made such a huge hit on Netflix, and I think they all carried themselves super well.
Yeah, if you would have told me that kid didn't have any acting in at all in anything, not even a commercial or anything like that, I wouldn't have believed you because I thought the character was pretty well written and he did a great job for being his first time in an acting role like that. But and it's interesting how his character development over the course of a few episodes, you're just kind of like, wow, that's a complete 180 for that character, which I thought was
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
They say seeing is believing, and he got the believer real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is there's a lot more demogorgons. There's a lot more peril. There's just a lot more that is taking place and taking shape. And I've seen a few TikTok videos that kind of, reference stuff from seasons 1 and 2 that are finally manifesting themselves in these first few episodes. But obviously, there's another round of episodes coming out Christmas. The finale is going to be hitting theaters at New Year's. They're really spacing this out to where you can like really take the time to watch and digest everything that's going on. Um, this, in my opinion, is probably one of the better uses of this staggered release concept because they're doing it around major holidays when they know that a majority of people are actually going to be off and being able to watch and talk about it. Um, I still think a week to week format is still a good thing, but if Netflix insists on doing it this way, then this is a pretty good way to do it.
I agree. You especially, releasing around major holidays is always going to be interesting because people are just going to sit and watch TV. I remember, I can't remember how many years ago when Wonder Woman 84 came out, but I think it was during the pandemic or around that time when Max was like, "Okay, we're going to premiere the movie on Christmas Day," and it's like, okay, granted, it's time I'm not going to get back because it was so slow and boring, but hey, I watched it on Christmas Day. But no, you're right. Now you're like going, okay, we all know this has happened. What's going to happen in these next 3 episodes? And then
Mhm.
and how is that going to impact everything for that final episode as we clock, are we going to take the time and watch it so that as New Year's hits, we're finishing it up? I mean, and of course,
Right.
I heard I don't know if it's true or not. It's like, I guess there's a rumor out there that they filmed 3 separate endings and that every household may not see the same ending, and that there's one that's apparently confirms internet rumors. One of the endings is for those people who have that internet rumor out there of something. So it's like,
Hmm.
if this is all true, that's one hell of a way to get people talking. B,
Mhm.
think about selling the physical media, going, okay, we got all 3 endings here for you.
Mhm.
So
And you can't just buy the ending, you have to buy the entire season.
exactly.
So you're buying 3 copies of the same season just so you can watch the alternate endings. Yeah. I don't know what to make of that, but it's definitely possible because Netflix is greedy and they're not
Yeah.
letting you share your password anymore. So if they're gonna do something like that, I would not put it past them. But, going back to some of the, TikTok speculation, and I guess this will be the only real spoiler that I want to get into, because for the most part we're trying to keep it spoiler free so that people can just hear our thoughts and enjoy it as we're enjoying it. Um, Henry slash Vecna takes on a bigger role in this season. And he manifests himself both as the creature of the upside down, but then he manifests himself just as a human to some of the characters as well. Um, do you think that that makes him a more sympathetic character in any shape or form? Because I have seen some speculation that he's being manipulated and he may end up flipping the way we saw Derek Turnbow flip in these first few episodes.
So it's interesting you bring that up. I actually watched a video about like the reasons he was afraid of following Max.
Mhm.
Um,
It has to do with the play, doesn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
but that there's also, I guess, a rumor going around that the mind flayer, so to speak, is controlling Vecna, so that
Mhm.
he really isn't the true big bad. He's just a puppet like everybody else.
Mhm.
So, is it possible? Absolutely, because there's some things that happened in the 4 episodes we didn't think humanly possible that clearly that clearly happened.
They clearly happened. Yep.
I mean, how many reaction videos do you think are out there just because of that one scene that even like literally my wife grabbed my hand when she was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And I was like, "Holy shit."
Mhm.
So, yeah, so anything's possible. I like the idea, the reveal of that he's, quote unquote saving kids, but maybe he really is. Maybe he is trying to protect them from what's haunted him pretty much his entire life, if you think
Mhm.
about it.
Mhm.
So, especially if the play itself comes into it and is believed to be canon.
Mhm.
If that's
Yep.
the case, then that makes a lot of sense then.
Yep. Yep. There's videos that talk about like how interesting it is that he's collecting 12 kids when the previous season revolved around a clock, which has 12 hands. And
Hmm.
so there are those little subtle tie-ins. Um, Man, okay, this I promised only one spoiler, but I've gotta do one more based on this speculation video that came out because I wanna get your thoughts on it. So, for the next, minute, if you don't want spoilers, you gotta mute this shit. Um, so, in the previous season, they were talking about how they needed to roll a nat D20 in order to defeat this character, and
Hmm.
Dustin ended up rolling an 11. Which is supposed to be symbolic of L, and
Right.
how on her own an 11 does not beat something that is a 20 difficulty. There is a speculation out there, and I love this theory, that the only way you can defeat a nat D20 villain in real life is if you combine the numbers of the kids that survived Hawkins' lab, because the sister
Hmm.
that they found, her number is 8, and Henry slash Vecna is 1. So 11 plus 8 plus 1 is the 20 that would be needed to defeat, let's say it's the Mind Flayer. That's the thing that makes me so interested in Vecna's storyline, is if that is the case, it's gonna be such an interesting flip, such an interesting turnaround, from what we have seen from the last season and a half. But to also have the Hawkins kids, the lab kids being the ones that help save the day together, I think would be really heartwarming in a certain sense too.
Well, and if you really think about the idea of Henry flipping and kind of coming back to the good side, essentially, you look at previous seasons where we've seen characters who seem like on the outside they're just irredeemable, but yet you look at getting into, like, say, with Billy, getting into his memories and understanding the reasons why he pretty much was a total asshole to everybody. And in the end, he commits the ultimate sacrifice to try to save everybody
Yep.
because it finally clicks. But I mean, Max was the same way until you finally got to learn more about her backstory and she started warming up and she kind of she flipped in a way. So it's interesting that a lot of the characters always seem to. It's like that. It's like the Dragon Ball Z thing where Goku can seem to make friends out of all his enemies, no matter
Mhm.
whether it's back in with Krillin and Tien to Piccolo and Vegeta. It's like it's the whole thing where we're getting something very similar in the sense of they're turning people. Um, People are flipping to the side of good, even though you think they were bad to begin with. So it's not impossible. I mean, these guys are really good at kind of redirecting us when we think we got it figured out. So
Mhm. Mhm. I have a suspicion that uh some of the things that transpired in the end of that fourth episode are also not what they appeared to be. And so I'm curious to see if my theories pan out, but it's so encouraging to see how um well received these episodes have been, because I double checked the previous scores on IMDb. That fourth episode is rated a 9.7 out of 10, which makes it the highest rated episode of the entire series. For all of the greatness that this show has had, it is seems to be that it's truly peaking at exactly the right time.
yeah, that episode had it all. There was a lot at stake, and because it's the final season, you don't know who's going to go, if they're going to go, when they're going to go, and they're doing just a lot of planting seeds of making you think
Mhm,
someone's about to bite it, and next thing you know, they're alive, and you're kind of going, "You got to quit playing with my emotions, man. I was
mhm,
about to lose it."
mhm. Yep, yep. I was already looking forward to the Christmas season, but now I've got another reason to be looking forward to it so that we can see what happens next. But overall, really, really strong start to the final season. And if they play anything in in the theaters, because there's talks about the finale being released in select theaters, are you going to try to go see that, or are you going to stick to seeing it on Netflix?
Probably just stick to seeing on Netflix. In the comfort of my own home with a big screen, just kind of kicking back. That I mean, don't get me wrong, seeing it in theaters would be wild and be a lot of fun, but nah, I think it's easier to just watch it at home where you're not worrying about trying to find a seat or wondering if something's going to sell out before you can get a chance to buy your ticket. So
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. There's an AMC that's literally like a mile away from my house. So if it's not one of those Fathom event bullshits where I have to pay extra for it or something,
yeah.
I may try and go, just because I went and saw V for Vendetta in the theaters not too long ago. And that was a cool experience, getting to like have those moments with other people. So if there's a chance at possibly having those moments with a crowd that's been following it for as long as I have, I may try it, but I think I'd only do it if it was something I could get off of A list. If it's a Fathom event, then I'll probably pass, because I'm already paying for Netflix. I'm not going to pay extra for something I can already see for free on Netflix.
Exactly.
So it is what it is. Um, but yeah, those are some of our thoughts on Stranger Things, and it's very relevant, very pertinent, and probably going to be something that gets talked about some more here on the program. Sean better catch up so that all three of us can talk about it on the next time that this discussion element comes around. Because by that point, it's only going to be one episode left, and it's going to be like a 2 hour movie length finale. So those next three episodes are going to be big.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be catching up in time.
There
I
he
won't
is.
even start. I haven't seen an episode of it, and other than like I know that there's this otherworld place, and I know some of the cast obviously, and some of the
Wait,
behind the scenes.
you haven't seen any of the show? Period.
None of it, which is why I did not listen to any of that. I took my headset
That's
off, and
wild, dude.
yeah, and I don't know. Like I don't know who lives, who dies. I don't know anything. I'm as cold going into this as anything, and I want to keep it that way because I know Jade and I want to binge watch it at some point, but it will not be anytime soon. It will not be one that's
Avoid
still
social
airing.
media like the plague. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, I don't search for it, right? And the way social media works now, it just doesn't pop up unless you're searching for those things or actively looking at those things. It's not that it doesn't interest. I mean, once I start watching it, it might start to interest me. But yeah, it's one of those things where I we'll watch it, but you're probably looking at summer next year, like realistically, to binge watch a whole new show. So you
You
haven't
mean
done it.
when the new Game of Thrones is out? That's when you're going to binge watch something else?
When
Probably
Ahsoka season 2 comes out,
probably before those things. But we'll see. Maybe not. It's not something we can watch in front of the kids, and with our work schedules, it makes it very difficult to be together for viewing things. So, yeah, it's not
I'll
that I
I'll
have anything
say
against it. It's just not something I've dove into.
I'll say this. It's one of those ones that I wish I could experience again for the first time. So, very similar to how my first Game of Thrones watching experience was. I basically binged all 6 seasons leading up to the 7th in just a span of a few days. I think this show definitely has the potential to do that to somebody. And whenever they do finally finish everything, I think my wife and I are going to go back and watch like everything through in its entirety so that we can like find all of those missing pieces of the puzzle and be able to kind of see it the way the Duffer Brothers like originally intended for the story to unfold. So going back through it in its entirety when you have the time for it isn't the worst option because then you get to really experience everything from start to finish. All right. There is only one more bit of housekeeping before we officially call it a night. And this may be one of the easiest bits or segments that we have ever done on this program. We do a element every week, every episode called Flicks Busters, where we review a movie and determine whether we think it is a flick or a bust. If our combined average scores is below 60%, it is a bust. And spoiler alert, this movie is definitely not below 60%. In fact, it may be quite the opposite. We have been going through in episodic order the Star Wars saga. Last week it was A New Hope. So, if you know the franchise in any capacity, you know that this review is of The Empire Strikes Back. And Randy's got an Imperial logo on his hat. Shawn was talking to me during the pre-show about what a cinematic achievement this film is, let alone just for Star Wars period, but for cinema in general. Um, Randy, I'll let you lead it off with your thoughts on this film, but I don't think there's any guessing in any of our minds how we may feel about this film.
Quickly before Randy goes, sort of cut you off, Randy.
Go for it, man.
Can we get rid of or do Mr. Fabulous threesomes thing first and then do R3? Just get his out of the way.
I guess so, if we have to.
Clearly, he was
Yeah.
high in midi-chlorians with his score. Right, kids.
Well, there you have it. I mean, it's not a bad score. Johnny comes in at 18 for writing, which is a lot better than he had for A New Hope. Acting and directing 17, production 20, sound 20, enjoyment 20. A total of 95. Send all your pre-orders for Midichlorians the game Johnny's way.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. That is like a collection of everything that has gone wrong on this podcast or the podcasts of past all in one image. That is one party that I don't think I would want to go to even if I was invited. I couldn't bring myself to play Midichlorians the game, and I couldn't bring myself to eat either the burger or the chicken. So I would be scared for my life and I would be hungry. So no, I don't think I could do that.
I also think Mrs. Zach would be wondering why you're eating a burger from a Burger King
from
hooker. So
a lady of the night. So
yes,
yes,
a lady of the night.
yeah, no, none of that is in my favor. So I'm gonna have to respectfully
That is
decline. However,
all Johnny.
it is worth noting, though, that if a movie has a combined score above 90%, which when we did the original Flixbusters podcast, we had a couple that hit above 90%. But have any of the ones that we've done since we started doing it on House of the Empire, have any of them gotten above 90%? I know we had one that was like 89.4 or something like that, didn't we?
One has.
Yes, yeah, one has. So this is the old graphic. I'm not putting up the new one.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's currently in our Hall of Fame.
At 92.3%. So that is the only one that amongst the three of us has actually gotten above 90%. But I do believe that that is going to change tonight. Randy, am I wrong?
You are not wrong. Because Shawn and I were talking earlier about this, and I was just like, yep, I think you need to make a special graphic for this one.
Shawn, did you get the time to actually make it?
Yeah. I mean, at least the score is right now. Do you want me to put it up on screen since it?
I mean, anybody have any objections to it going up?
I mean, considering what our scores are, I think it's only fair that we, get to see the special graphic for Empire Strikes Back.
Bring it on up, buddy. That was the easiest submission and easiest bit of math that we have ever had to put together on this program.
And I still
Because
messed it up.
and you still said that all of those 20s equals 88 or something like that.
That's some
We had
Steiner math if I ever saw any.
we had a holdover from a previous graphic, but there's just nothing about this movie that should let us indicate that it should be anything less than perfect. I mean, it is a collection of some of the greatest action sequences and character arcs and story developments and musical achievements, visual achievements, the set design, and just everything getting a step up from A New Hope. And then you actually have one of the rarest pieces of story that gets told in cinema where at the end of the movie, the bad guys have won. It's just so damn good. It's so damn good. And to be anything less than 100, in my opinion, is an atrocity. So I'm glad that we were all in consensus, because if there was even a 19 somewhere from any of us, I would have been pissed off.
Well, I'm glad I did not disappoint. But when you think of the story itself, it made total sense too, because yes, the good guys, the upstarts, the rookies, the guys who were basically the underdogs came out with the win in the first one, but they still kind of limped away. And now you have the full force of the Empire chasing them, trying to snuff them out. They need, you need that loss to be able to level up, to be able to take down the giants. So it was the way the story was told and the way you just kind of felt for all the characters. It's not like it's just one, it's all of them. All of them got shit on at some point in this movie. Like they all had just got kicked in the nuts, and that was the end of it. So it really helps that they told a great story, but the acting, the writing, the directing, where you actually started feeling more for these characters because the development was done so well from start to finish. It got you hyped for going, okay, we need that third one. We need a third movie. We need to find out what happens. The good guys have to win this one. And pair that with some awesome visuals and such an amazing soundtrack. The Asteroid Field is still my favorite Star Wars track ever. That just the anxiety that watching that scene with that music it brings. Chef's kiss. That's pure cinema right there, man.
I think that far and away this is the best motion picture film ever made. Not just Star Wars film. I I don't think any Star Wars film will ever touch this. Yeah, the bad guys win. The funny thing is, you had people clamoring and trying to convince George Lucas to just do a retread of Star Wars because it was so successful, and I'm glad that he didn't allow what he wanted to do to be swayed. And um, it's not just, I think, the best motion picture film ever made. It's my favorite film ever made, and um, it's just fantastic, start to finish. And I don't really want to get too much further into this because I think we could do a whole Empire Strikes Back, special at some point where it's all Empire, or even do a Empire watch party down the road. Um, which I don't believe is something we have ever done on any incarnation of any of our shows.
Not yet. We were
Um,
supposed to.
and yeah, so like it's a perfect score, and it deserves to be a perfect score.
I remember one time I was doing a presentation on the word masterpiece, and I had to come up with different types of masterpieces, whether it be something from art or sculpture. And I think I used the Thinker with the or maybe it was Michael. It was a very famous sculpture, and then I used Starry Night for the art piece because I was in a big Van Gogh era at the time. And then I had to come up with like a masterpiece of a view or something like that, and I used the Grand Canyon. So it was just all of these breathtaking, iconic, jaw dropping type things, and then I did a cinematic masterpiece, and it was literally this poster. I think it was this very poster of The Empire Strikes Back, and so uh, it, this is among those other that I mentioned of the top 5 I'll never say no to. Shawn mentioned Curse of the Black Pearl. That one does rotate in and out amongst a few other highly touted candidates. But if you ever approach me anytime, day or night, you could wake me up in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. And, no matter what kind of a day I've had, no matter what kind of a mood I'm in, whether I had a good day, a bad day, a long day, I got off work early, does not matter. If you ask me, do you want to watch Empire Strikes Back? My answer will never, ever, ever be no. Because I love seeing this movie so much.
It's amazing. It's one of a kind.
And it's very deserving of all of the praise that we are giving it. And with that perfect 100%, it's now added to the Hall of Fame. I feel like you kind of threw that together while I was going on my rant there, Shawn.
Nope, it was prepared before the show.
You had it pre-made. Okay. Sometimes I riff like that and I'm able to scramble and get it put together in a decent enough time. But I'm glad that it was ready to go. And speaking of ready to go, I mean, guys, that's a great way to end a very full and very fun podcast episode tonight.
I agree 100%.
Randy, where can the folks at home keep up with you when you're not part of these episodes?
So over on X, you can find me at Giggity Giles. With the football playoffs picture starting to clear up more, the guys at the Sports Brew are getting ready to record our next episode this week. If you're interested in people talking sports, talking shit, getting drunk, and having a lot of fun, and just having somebody saying some of the most absurd shit you'll ever heard, then I got the podcast for you. Just Google Sports and Brew, and you'll find the home feed on Podbean, no problem.
Man, Podbean is it's been very good for us over at IPC. That's a great place to have it. And yeah, I'm hoping my Packers can take down the Bears during the stretch and make it interesting. Shawn, what about you? What do you got down the pipe?
We'll let everybody know what's going on next week. Hopefully, in a few days. We don't know if it'll be a normal House of the Empire episode or if it'll be one of those Wasteland specials. And just keep it here. We got Patreon tomorrow night, episodes 4 and 5 of Kenobi with Randy, Johnny, and myself. And yeah, that's about it. Big thank you to our patrons. Big thank you to our sponsors. And thanks for Zach for hosting tonight.
I had fun, and because of the way schedules are arranging, you're actually going to get to see my stupid mug next week as well, in whatever capacity that takes. I'm actually going to be out of the country on my next scheduled appearance, so I'm going to double up now while I'm still around, and then we'll hopefully have some cool stuff in store for you whenever I get back. But we will be back next Monday right here on YouTube. So be sure to like and subscribe so you get notifications for when this program goes live and when other content is up. But for Shawn and Randy, I'm Zach signing off for now, thanking you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time when the Empire returns.